How's it going?
Hey, good. Okay, it's time to start the music. It's time to light the lights. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first class of CS410P and 510 Advanced Programming with Java. If you're looking for Spanish literature, that's in a different room. And speaking of the room, this room is awkwardly wide. So I think I'll be doing a lot of the side-to-side head-turning stuff. And so if I'm talking over here and you need to get my attention, I guess I'll have to be audible or something. I hope you guys can see the screens okay. Let me introduce myself. I'm David Whitlock. I've been teaching this course here at PSU for a very long time now. I'm pleased and kind of surprised, actually, that they keep letting me teach it. And I really appreciate all of the interest that all of you have in this course. We'll be talking about the reality of the wait list and sort of what's going on here in a couple of minutes. This is the first class. We're going to go long tonight. It's scheduled for, what is it, 5:30 to 9:30? 9:30 at night? What? Yeah. Wait, 10:50? No, 9:50. Okay. Yeah, that's way past my bedtime. Yeah. Although there are no windows in this room, so I guess we can't tell if it's light or dark outside. But hey, actually, the thing I do like about this room, though, is that it's got these tables and we can move around. It'll be easy for us to do some pair programming, some mob programming throughout the course. Tonight, though, it's mainly going to be me talking at you and you asking questions about what's going on. We'll start out with a brief set of introductory slides. We'll talk about the syllabus, the content of the course. I'll walk through sort of getting started with working in Java, and we'll see we'll dive into some coding. We'll also watch a couple of videos, have a good time. I mean, heck, we've got 4 hours together tonight.
Should watch the extended edition of Lord of the Rings.
Oh, pretty much, yeah, and maybe even sober. Okay, oops, I didn't want to share. I wanted to do the screen. Present. So, hi everyone. Hi, Dave. Okay, good, yeah, good. So, first off, we're going to introduce myself and also our graders who have joined us. We'll talk about the situation with the enrollment. We'll talk about the course, its syllabus. We'll create a Java project. We'll learn about a couple of the first assignments, like the Java cones. We'll talk about test-driven development, sort of what it means and what it means for the course, and then we'll apply some of it in the first Java project. So all sorts of good stuff. But first, here's who we are. So, hi, I'm David Whitlock. Like I said, I've been teaching here for a long time. During the day, I lead up the agility enablement team at Tripwire, which is a cybersecurity company located downtown. I'm joined in this course by our 2 graders, Ami and Aman. Please stand up and introduce yourselves, everybody. Rise, stand up. Okay.
Hi, I'm Aman. I'm a CS grad student here, taking a break this summer semester, and I hope this class is good for you.
And you might have something to do with that too, depending on, because you'll be doing senior grading, and so will Ami.
Hi, I'm Ami. I'm also a computer science grade student, and in summer I'm also taking the break, and I hope you enjoy this class.
Great. And so then you'll be seeing me every week. They, on the other hand, will be mainly working to grade your quizzes, to grade your projects, and provide you feedback along the way so that you know how you're doing in the course. So this course is very popular. So despite being offered for 19 years now, it's gotten really, really popular. And so then a couple years ago, they added a graduate section. And so there are 30 undergraduates that can be registered for this course, 30 graduate students that can be registered for this course. And the reason it's 30 and 30 is that this is all the room can hold. And so then I can't add anybody else, otherwise the fire marshal gets on my case, actually gets on the department's case, actually gets on the School of Engineering's case, which then gets on the department's case, and then gets on my case, and I've heard is a bad thing. So sorry, 60 is all we can get. That being said, there were still some pretty long wait lists, even on Friday. And so we'll talk about what to do about it, but I wanted to thank everybody for your interest in the course. It means a lot to me. I'm actually really quite impressed that there are so many of you who are interested in it. And okay, maybe you said, hey, it's one night a week, and that'll be straightforward. I don't really care why you're here. I'm just really pleased that you're here. So here's what we do. I printed up some little and actually very hard to read questionnaire cards that ask you things like your name, the last 4 digits of your student ID. And this is, actually, I'll have the graders. I got people to do this for me. I got people. Are you sending it out? Well, they are charged by the hour. I completely get it. See you later. So please pass these down to your friends. Let's go from each side here. Oh, this is great. I was going to say Phil Donahue, but that really dates me. I'll stop running now because I face myself. So, please. So, while I'm rambling on up here, please take a minute and tell me who you are, the last 4 digits of your social security number. There are a couple other questions on there too. This is how I'm going to record that you were here tonight. At the first break, please bring them up and put them up here. And so then after class, I'll go home and tally up everybody who was here. As I said in that email from a couple weeks ago, anyone who doesn't attend the first night or make special arrangements with me otherwise, and there were a couple people that emailed me saying they couldn't make it. Anybody didn't get one yet? Super important. I'll take the extras. Don't want to stuff about. Oh, look, Bart Simpson was here. Yeah, nothing like that. Anybody who is registered who didn't attend tonight, I will ask the department to drop from the course, and then that will make room for students who are on the wait list. Just show up. Yeah. So make sure he gets one of the little cards, if there are any extra ones. If not, you need to tell me that you arrived. Here, can you pass them down to him? If he can find a seat. I don't know. I will then, for every student who's registered who didn't attend, and there are usually a couple, I will drop them from the course and add people from the wait list according to the sequence number and according to their registration number. And so then we won't be able to accommodate everybody who is on the list, and I appreciate those of you who were on the wait list who showed up tonight for the first lecture. Hopefully we can get you into the class. Any questions on what to expect in terms of people who aren't enrolled yet? Nope. Okay. So, any other questions before we dive in? Nope. Okay. Oh, I do record all of the sessions, and I want to pause record. Okay. So let's take a look at the class webpage. So here is the course webpage. It's also my homepage at PSU. This is where I recommend that you start with the class. I think a number of you have already checked it out. This tells you, I think, everything that you need to know or ought to know for the course. There's for those of you who maybe it's been a while since you've used Java or maybe never used Java before, I have a couple of references here, lots of slides. These are slides that I used to cover in the first couple of weeks of the course, but then I found that enough students had seen things like the Java programming language and know enough about classes and object-oriented programming that it was kind of redundant. I'd rather make room in the course for new material. But if you want to review or feeling a little rusty, please feel free to review those materials. Also, on your own time, I highly recommend the IntelliJ IDEA IDE for the course. I'll be demonstrating a lot. You'll be seeing a lot of it. And the cool thing is that you can get an academic license. They have a free student license. It's good for a year or something like that. And so then this is what I use professionally. A lot of people use professionally. It's a really good tool. So let's dive right into the syllabus. Okay, so what we're here to do is to learn all about the Java programming platform and really more advanced techniques in software engineering through the Java language and a lot of the tools that it offers for test-driven development and refactoring and doing hopefully more complex and interesting stuff than you've done maybe in some of your other classes. We'll do this through a couple of means. There's the so one of the things that I did, probably about 5 years ago now, is I flipped the classroom. So for the first 10 plus years of me teaching this, it was the Dave Show, and I'm up here and I'm walking through slides and I'm telling you about all of this stuff. And then I got bored of that, and I thought, if I'm bored of that, imagine what it's like for the students. So I said, okay, I love to hear myself talk. I mean, my nasally voice just bounces off that wall right back at me, gives me this nice little endorphin run and everything, but you don't need that. Instead, what I've done is I've recorded all of the lectures, which are pretty much the same from year to year, and put those up on YouTube. And actually, all of those are easily referenced here from these screencast links that I'll bring you off to YouTube. So instead, what we do during class is I show you programming. I show you the advanced programming. And so tonight we'll see the beginning of that, of getting started with a project. We'll do some test-driven development to see how you can go about approaching your work in Java. So that's what we do during lecture time. I also hope that we have some good discussions here. Again, as much as I love to hear myself speak, I'm not here to hear. I can do that at home by myself, which is a little weird, but it's kind of weird doing it in front of you too. And so then please feel free to ask questions during class. I'm here for you, to help you learn, not just for my own benefit. And then also, I hope we'll be working with each other a lot during class. One of the things that we do here is what are called coding katas, which are small little programming projects that are meant to be accomplished within an hour or so. And this will give you an opportunity to reinforce what we learned during class, to do your own test-driven development, to work in your own environment, but not by yourself, but with your peers. So we'll be doing some pair programming, some mob programming, to see what it's like working on these code katas. So that's what we'll do during class together. Outside of class, there's a number of other things that we do to reinforce what we learn. I have a lot of example code, and it's what we refer to in the lectures up on YouTube. And that code is there for you to review, to work with, to play with, to understand and ask questions about. There's also a multi-phase project that will guide you from writing simple Java classes all the way through working with files and working with some text formatting, and then a multi-process program where you have some client server, you do some HTTP programming. And then also the final project this term will be in Android. So one of the things I've always done with the class is had a user interface. And user interface technologies have really changed a lot over the years. What we're going to be doing this term is learning about Android and how you can use the Java programming language and the platform and the libraries and the coding techniques that you've gotten used to in your first projects, which are all command line based, into something that is modern and user interactive and hopefully exciting. I will say that I've never taught Android before, and so I don't know how it's going to work with the class. So the first 8 weeks, I feel very confident about. Those last 2 weeks, it'll be an experiment. It'll be fun. For me, anyway. We'll see what it's like for you guys. We'll give it a try. Yeah. But that's like, come on, 2 months away or something, right? Plenty of time to write those slides. Also, there are quizzes and exams. The quizzes are on D2L. It's all online. And they are referenced here. You can also go to D2L. Like, for instance, next week, quiz 1 is due. I'll get to your question in a moment. And there's a quiz every week, essentially, including 2 surveys. There's a midterm survey, which gives me some feedback in terms of how we're doing during the term, so I can adjust anything in the second half. And then there will also be a quiz for the, there's a survey at the end, because I'm generally interested in your feedback, and you can see the comments going way, way back from other classes. Question, yes?
You said that the class was 10 weeks, but the schedule says...
I'm sorry, 8 weeks. Okay, so I only got 6 weeks to write those slides. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. Fun. Good. And then there will be a final exam. I'll go into the percentages a little while longer. Okay. Those are the mechanics of the course. What are the topics that we're going to cover? I won't lecture about it, but again, you have the ability to go learn about the syntax of the Java programming language, both sort of like the stuff that's always been there and then some of the newer language features that they've added in the past couple of years. We do a lot of object-oriented programming in this course, so you'll be able to learn about object-oriented design and object-oriented analysis and programming and all of that good stuff. Something that you may or may not have encountered in your other classes is really working with a set of standard libraries. That's something that we emphasize a lot in here. So we'll see how to use somebody else's code to get your work done. So we'll look at Java's facilities for just data structures and other utility classes, as well as doing file I/O and network I/O, and how they apply object-oriented designed to have a sort of familiar APIs across the entire platform. We'll also be seeing a lot of testing in this course, both unit testing and integration testing. It's part of modern software development. Gone are the days where we spend months or years toiling away writing all of the code, and then it's like, okay, it's all done, right? Time to test it. You want to have very rapid feedback, and a big part of what it means to be a software developer is writing tests that demonstrate that your code works. And of course, this is a really good thing for students to do, because if you can demonstrate your code works, you're going to get an A, right? You're going to pass all the test cases. So that's pretty powerful. So we'll be seeing test-driven development, and we'll also be using the Maven tool to build Java projects. These projects are more than just hello world. They use lots of libraries. They once you start getting into the stuff with web servers, the web containers and stuff, we'll be using all sorts of things. And Maven helps get all that organized, make sure that you have the right versions of all the tools that you need to have your end-to-end application. We'll also be seeing how to develop web applications. Actually, in particular, we'll be seeing sort of the back end. We'll be working with the REST API, and then we'll be working with, then we'll be working with Android. There's also a lecture on what's called dependency injection, which is a more intermediate design pattern for how to organize your objects to keep things nice and decoupled and testable. And then finally, we'll be finishing off with, small user interface development, and it's phone development, and I guess you get tablet development, using Android. So something new there. So those are the kinds of things that we'll be covering. We're not going to go into databases. We're not going to go into cloud computing. It's just, hey, we've only got 8 weeks, he tells me. So there's not a lot of stuff. There's only so much stuff that we can cover. Besides, you don't want me talking any faster than I already do. Okay. Grading policies. Okay. The largest, the bulk of the class is in the code that you write, right? This is not, advanced programming theory and thesis writing papers. We're programming. What we do in here is code. So 60% of your overall grade is accounted for in the multi-phase project. There are 5 phases to the project. There's also a cones assignment. I'll talk about that later. And this is the code that you will start building tonight. And you'll be using it throughout the entire course. There are 8 quizzes, and I dropped the lowest quiz grade. Each of those is worth 4% for a total of 28% there. And then there's also the final exam, which is worth 12%. And so then this is not the kind of course where your entire grade is determined by the 2 hours of the final exam. I don't think that's fair. And really that would be kind of silly for this course. So the final exam is important. But really, you need to, if you want to do well in the course, you need to do well on every assignment. But there's also enough slack in there's also enough pieces of feedback that you get. So if you bomb a quiz, or you didn't understand an assignment and get a slightly lower grade, it's not going to kill your letter grade. I do have a couple of policies with regards to grading and submitting assignments. Can someone please make sure that he gets a little card? Is there an extra one floating around? Thanks. Send it back to him. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. So let's see here. With regards to late work, let's make it a little smaller. There we go. Okay, there's lots of projects there are 5 projects that are due. You have a total of 2 late days to use for submitting projects. Come on, there's a lot of work. It's all busy. We're all busy. It's summertime. Hey, maybe you'd like to be outside on your weekend instead of doing your project. And so if you can't get it in on the day that it's due, well, that's okay. Twice. And so then so at any time you can use those 2 late days. You can also, there's also a resubmit policy, which is that you can resubmit 1 project for regrading. So we throw away your first grade and we take your second grade within a week of the original grading. So usually the way it works is that projects are due on Wednesday, so right before class. Please come to class. So they're due right before class on Wednesday. You'll get feedback on them probably like Sunday night or Monday morning. And that starts a timer on the 1-week resubmit. So you can then resubmit after that. Yeah.
Funny, because...
Thank you, I try.
Yeah. I could submit a empty text file, get 0, and it sounds like there's 9 days that I could have it.
Are you a law major by any chance?
No,
yes, you can. Once. Right? Yeah. And so save it till the end. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. So
It probably would.
yes, I mean, yeah. Yes, you can do that. Don't know why I want to. Yes.
Sorry.
That's very true. Right. Otherwise, my policy is no other late work will be accepted. In reality, there's more slack, but this is my policy. Now, I grade on a curve. There are a lot of people, right? And so the curve is appropriate. In reality, though, there's usually not much of a curve. What I've found and what I try to achieve in the course is a course that is accessible to most people. So as a result, most people do well, right? You know, A's and B's. So if you're like, well, my average is a 65. Oh, but there's a curve. No, you're going to be on the left side of the curve because usually the curve is weighted towards the right. So, but here again, but I reserve the right. So if something goes weird, like with the Android projects, you know, I want to make sure that if I screw up and don't provide a course that is accessible, that it doesn't hurt everybody's grade. Oh, and note that the curve works both ways. You know, if I find that, oh, I made it a little too accessible. So if you're like, okay, good, I got a 90, that should be, you know, a B plus or whatever, an A minus or whatever. Nope, that might be, in the B plus range. I haven't had to do that in a very long time though. Also, with regards to grading, we have two sections of this course, and in terms of the work is the same, right? I'm not going to give the I'm too lazy to give the graduate students a harder assignment or whatever. Come on, right? So everybody does the same work. However, I reserve the right to have different grading scales for the two. I think they're the same most of the time. So again. You know, this is worked out, but because these are the questions that come up on the first day, this is how all of that works. Any questions about grading? No? Okay. Don't cheat. Duh, right? Again, I don't feel like I have to tell you this, but don't. I use this really cool tool called Moss, which goes and analyzes your code. And it's really good at comparing Java, and it knows the difference between, you know, someone just like adding some comments, renaming some variables, and two implementations that just look very similar. So if you're tempted, just outright copy somebody. Don't. I'm going to catch you. That being said, my policy with regards to collaboration is talk all you want, draw some pictures on the whiteboard. If you want to be absolutely sure, though, don't share your code with anybody. Don't show your code to anybody. And that way, you know, you're not going to be, you know, it'll sort of be impossible to plagiarize somebody else's code. But it's, you know, I admit it, it's a balance, right? I'm telling you to talk to each other, work with each other, you know, share what you know on Slack, and then, oh, but wait, you know, don't worry about cheating. If you're worried about something, let me know. But here again, you know, you've all been doing this long enough. I think you know the rules, but I have to tell you the rules just so I can say I told you. Right? Yes.
Aren't you actually going to work in pairs with the programming projects?
The projects are individual work. You know, I don't have. We've all been in the situation where we've been part of a team or been part of a pair, and you're the person doing all the work, and the other person's doing nothing. And boy, you know, software engineering is a team sport, right, out there in the real world. And here we are in training, and we just got to work on our own, right? I don't know a good way of fairly assessing, because at the end of the day, each one of you has a transcript, each one of you has your own GPA. I don't have a good way of fairly assessing the work of a team in terms of the individuals. So all of you do get group time here in class, and that's why we do the pair programming, that's why we do the mob programming. So you get the experience of working with other people, of collaborating on a problem. That's very valuable. That's something that does not directly impact your grade, though. So, yeah, good question. Thanks. Okay. Other miscellaneous stuff. The lecture notes are all up on the website. I want you to have access to them in class. You need to look something up, or in case we're talking about something in the lecture notes. Please don't wait until the last minute to start the projects. Sometimes it might seem easy, especially the first one. My experience has been is that yes, the coding in the first project is easy. It's getting your environment set up and really understanding all the moving parts, not so easy. So don't wait until next Tuesday night to start it. Please start it soon, like tomorrow night or over the weekend or something. We'll talk more about this next week, but documentation is part of the course, part of what you're assessed on. And I encourage you to write your user documentation, your API documentation, as you're writing your code, right? You're about to write a bunch of code, write a little explanation of what it is. I think for me, and I found for a lot of my students over the years, this helps them understand, so sort of get their mental process out into writing and then into code. Please ask questions when you have them. I'm here for you on the Slack channel. I'm here for you also. Don't suffer in silence, and don't feel like you're the only one with the question. Because most likely, if there's something that I've said that you don't understand, lots of other people haven't understood it either. And so then, I mean, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to feel intimidated by. Please ask your questions. It's the best thing for you. It's the best thing for everybody, really. So this is an upper division course. This is a challenging course in places. If you're taking other courses, like an operating systems course, a compiler course, or like full stack development, or all the other stuff, they offer a lot of cool classes in the summer, but it's a lot of work. And so I've had a number of students over the years that have sort of slogged through it, and they're like, wow, I would have enjoyed your course a lot more if I hadn't also been taking 3 other programming courses. So please evaluate your workload appropriately. I provide you a lot of code. Go home and play with them. All my code is up on GitHub. We'll see that in a little bit. And I try to make all of that accessible. I do have office hours. They are not in whatever dungeon they've assigned me in the computer science department. I need to eat too, and so I have my dinner an hour before class at Hot Lips Pizza. Please feel free to stop by. But really, probably the best way to communicate with me, especially during the week and the weekends, is through Slack. And so I've set up a Slack channel for the course. It's the first time I've done this because they shut down Google+. No, seriously, I was like the only person using Google+, apparently. People laughed at me. Well, look at me now. Okay. So I sent out, everybody who was registered for the course got the invitation link. I'll send out another, invitation link too. Please, for those of you who are registered, look in your email. A lot of you already have joined the Slack community. Thank you for doing that. And I'll also double check to make sure that everybody who has run the survey program, we'll talk about that in a second, gets an invitation also. Because this will probably end up being the primary means of communication. Email's fine, but I found that when one person has a question, everybody benefits from the answer. So I'll tend to answer things on Slack. So that's interesting. My email address that I use for PSU is whitlock@cs.pdx.edu. I discovered last year that there's another David Whitlock who's associated with Portland State, and he's got whitlock@pdx.edu. So if you've been trying to email me at that address, some poor dude over on the east side working in art history or something has gotten all of our emails. I've reached out to this guy to apologize. I think he's ignored my email too. I just want to show up. It's like, you stole my name. Anyway, so if you need to get my PSU, my Odin account email, that's whitlockcd@pdx.edu. Of course, it all gets routed to my Gmail. So anyway, so so if you see something from my Gmail, that's also me too. We've already seen the class webpage. It's another great resource. And finally, I need some information from you. And the way I get this information is by you running what's called the survey program. So please log on to the CS department's Linux machines. I think most of them have this link, have the right file here, and run this program, java-cp. Well, I don't need to read it to you. I guess you can all see it. And what this will do is run a little command line program, ask for some information about yourself, like your name, your student ID, and stuff like that. And what this does is then creates a little XML file and emails it off to actually the graders account. And then I can extract that. And this is how, and what this does is it starts the process by which I record your grade. So I wrote a million years ago a little program that's a grade book. I need this information from you. So you get to do all the data entry, and then I get to record all your grades. Okay, so that's it for the syllabus. Any questions about sort of what we're here to do, how we're going to do it, what makes it interesting? Yes?
So what are the quizzes based off of? Is it the online lectures or?
Yes, the quizzes are based on essentially the content from let's see here, from the previous week. Quiz 1 is actually sort of more of a tell me a little bit more about yourself and your background, and can you write hello world type thing. So that's quiz 1. But then the quizzes are mainly due, or the quiz that's due like on July 10th will be on this introductory, or the stuff from week 2, previous week. Good question. Yes.
So what about the email and the office hours for the TAs?
The TAs are both available on Slack. Actually, they're not TAs; they're graders.
Oh, great.
So, and the difference is, well, they can't work as much, and they don't get paid as much. But anyway, really, it is they're there to grade. So, if you have questions about your the grades that you're assigned, either in your quizzes or in your on your projects, yep, you can reach out to them, either to them directly or through me. But I have asked them to sort of monitor the Slack, but neither of them has taken the course before. So while they know a bit about Java, I don't think they'll say, oh yes, project 2, I remember doing that. That was really tough. Here's some advice. No, they're not going to be able to do that. So
I guess if, like, say, you have questions about your assignments are graded, you can request for a regrade.
yes. So if you have questions about the grades that you receive from them, yep, work with them. Feel free to copy me to keep me in on the conversation.
Okay.
Yep.
And where's their emails that come?
What is their emails? I don't remember off the top of my head. And so what I'll do is I'll ask them to post it on Slack. Actually, well, you can post it on Slack, and I'll mention them. They were Aman and Ami. Their names are very similar. That's convenient. Yeah, 4 letters. Very nice. Okay. Oops. Any other questions, or just about the course in general, about the syllabus? Okay. Nice. Let's start doing some code. Okay. So, as I mentioned briefly, we use a tool called Maven to build our Java projects. And so this takes care of all of the compiling, all of the running of the unit tests, and all bundling things together into jar artifacts so we can run them. And it's very convenient, and I think it hides a lot of complexity from all of you, which is good. It lets you focus on focus and go fast and stuff that's interesting and really what the course is about, which is writing code. But over the years, I found that it's kind of challenging to get started with it. There are some students that end up using a lot of the first week just getting their environment set up, and I thought, okay, well, how can I make this easier? So I'm trying something this term. This is brand new. So what I've done is I've created a GitHub repository to help you get started. Have you used Git before? Yes, lots of no. Have you used GitHub before? Okay, so I think, oh, good. So most people seem to know what this is all about. The whole idea is that Git is a version control system, code or whatever you want to put in there, version control system. And GitHub is a publicly facing website that hosts Git repositories. And so the whole idea is that you create a repository out there, and I can take that repository, I can make what's called a clone of it on my local machine, I can do work on my local machine, I can then, what's called commit, sort of, I save a copy of it, of my code off to the repository, and then I can push it up to GitHub for the entire world to see. What I'm going to walk through tonight is how. So then I created this GitHub repository to help you get started with the programming assignments. I have a lot of words here that you can go off and read on your own. I think what I'm going to do though is. And what we can do with this repository is you can get your own copy of it, and then it'll help you get started, and it's also a place where you can store your code. And you can put your, then you can use it in your local repository, and if you want to create a GitHub account, you can then store your repository, you can store your code in a private repository that no one else can see, up on GitHub, and so that way you have the ability to, well, save a backup of your code, and then also easily transfer your code between different machines. That'll be important in this class because You can develop on whatever machine you want, but in terms of what I tested on the CS department's Linux machines. And so then it is in your own best interest to make sure that your code runs as expected on the CS department's machines. So you have to move your code back and forth. Back a million years ago, people used like SFTP or rsync or something like that. GitHub makes it much easier now. Does that workflow sort of make sense to people? Is that how you've used GitHub before in the past? Okay, good. Although just to be clear, GitHub is not a required part of this course. If you are morally opposed to GitHub or whatever, and that's fine if you are, they are owned by Microsoft. Is that right? Yeah. Anyway, hard to believe, right? I mean, those guys bought GitHub anyway, and are doing fine things with it. Okay, you're listening in. Yeah. So anyway, but I use GitHub a lot. I'm a big fan, and I think what it does is it helps It helps me share the code that I write with you. So I've got this repository here, and so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort of follow the same workflow that I think you would follow, so that you can see, and we'll be here on the recording for tonight. Check the recording, make sure we're still recording. Yay, 27 minutes. So that you can then follow along at home or here in class if you want to type real fast. So normally what you would do is just make a clone of a repository. What I want to do though is make sort of a copy of the repository locally, create a new repository of my own. Mine will be public, yours will be private, and then import, if you will, the repository from, and this will be confusing because it's all my stuff, from the Getting Started repository into something else. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use this command called git clone -- bear, which instead of actually making a copy of the repository, just checks out essentially the .git directory. Cool, and now I've got a directory, got a million directories. I've got a Portland State Java Getting Started .git directory, which I'm going to cd into. Oops. And if you know anything about Git, this is what a .git directory looks like. Next, I'm going to go back to GitHub and create a new repository for my code. Right. So this is okay, and this is where it gets confusing because it's me both acting as like Professor Dave and then also pretend student Dave. I can never do what you do. You work so hard and stay up so late at night. Of course, you're also a little bit younger than I am. Okay, a lot younger than I am. But anyway. So here in GitHub, I want to create a new repository. And I want to call it, I want to do it in a new tab so that I can go back and forth easily. I want to call it, I'm sorry, oh, and there was a link to this here on the references for the first class. So getting started with the GitHub repository. I see some of you like kind of trying to read the URL. Good luck, I'm moving pretty fast. I want to make the name of the repository, called, I need to highlight that, Portland State Java Summer 2019. You can call yours whatever you want. Don't initialize it with anything like a README or even a description. So this is code that, this will then store like the code that I write for the class. As the professor, I want everybody to see this. As students, you want to make a private repository. And if you have a GitHub student account or a student license, whatever it's called, you can have, it might even be unlimited now. It used to be 5 private repositories. It might be unlimited now. So yay, GitHub, thank you very much.
You can do it for free now, too.
Oh, and for free you get private ones? Wow, yeah. Good for them. They must be making plenty of money off of GitHub Enterprise, which is good. Okay, so I'm going to create a new repository for this code. I do not want to initialize it. I'll just go ahead and create it. Okay, here's some more setup instructions, but you'll want to have special setup instructions. So you want to go to your so meanwhile back on your machine. Sorry, I'm going a little bit out of order. You did the git clone. I cd'd into that directory, and now I want to take the contents of this directory and push it to that repository I just created. There we go. And by the way, if you haven't used GitHub before, there's a whole bunch of setup that you need to do in terms of like, importing your SSH keys and all of that good stuff. There's really good documentation on all of this. I'm not going to walk you through all of that tonight. But if you're having questions or whatever, please reach out on Slack. So now I'm going to go back to my summer 2019 repository that I created. I probably should have showed you before. Before it was empty, and now it's full of. Oh, I did that at work, didn't I? Full of actually the same stuff from the other repository. So I basically created a copy of this Getting Started repository into my own repository called Java Summer 2019. Oops. So all that exists on GitHub right now. I'm going to blow away that Java Getting Started.git directory because I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to make a clone of that repository that I just created. So this is a clone that I can actually then commit to and work with. Great. And now it's got the stuff from there. And just to show you that I can make changes to it, what will I do? I can just add a file, I suppose. Hello. Oops, insert. Hello, everyone. So now through the magic of Git, I can add my new file. I can commit. Oops. Right. Oh, interesting. Right, it doesn't like the escape the exclamation point. Looks silly, but okay. And now if I do a git push, so what I just did is I added a new file locally. I added it to my Git repository. I committed it to my local Git clone, the repository that's there in the clone. Now I can push it up to GitHub. And now if I go and look here, you'll see I just created that, and then here is my hello. Hello, everyone. Okay, so that's what you can do with Git. It's an easy way for me to work locally, commit stuff as I'm doing work on it, and then share it with everybody else. So that's what Git and GitHub can do for you. The next thing that you need to do is get ready to do some Java. Okay, so you'll need the Java Development Kit, the JDK. I recommend you get the latest version, 11 or 12. They should both work fine. And then you need to get started using Maven. So in the past, what students have had to do is go off and download Maven, install it locally, configure their path and everything. And that worked, but it was kind of cumbersome, and some people struggled with it. They've introduced something called the Maven wrapper, which is a little script that you can include in your source code that will go and like download Maven for you and install in the right place and sort of run everything. So it's one fewer thing for you to worry about. And so then one of the things this repository lets you do is leverage that stuff really easily. However, there's some settings that you need to configure for Maven so they can do things like find my code to download it. Luckily, here in the Getting Started repository, which I have now copied into my Portland State Java Summer 2019 repository, there is a settings.xml file, and all you need to do is copy this settings.xml to your home.maven2 directory. So if you do that, then you've configured Maven to like see my repositories and stuff, because this is all about, oh look, here's where I deploy my Maven artifacts. And if you want to learn more about Maven, actually, you must learn more about Maven, so go watch the screencast.
If you've done stuff with your like home/.m2 file already from like following Project Zero stuff, is this gonna overwrite that, or is it going to have an
This is the same XML that's in Project Zero. So that's a good point. So yeah, and here again, I just banged this out this last weekend, and it's a new thing. So there might be some duplication from what's there in the assignments, and actually we'll look at Project Zero pretty shortly.
Okay, so just following this won't mess anything up that we've already done if we've gotten.
I don't think so. It shouldn't. Famous last words? Here again. Haven't got any feedback on this. Actually, people have asked a couple good questions in Slack, and I've updated the README with some more information based on that. So please provide me with feedback on this. Again, this is the first time I've used this method, so let me know if this repository is helpful for you. My goal here is to get you up and running quickly. Okay. Let's see here, 6:16. I've been talking for 45 minutes. We need to take a break at some point. But today is not that day. Okay. Yeah. Oh, we got a lot of stuff to cover. Sorry. Okay. So, what I'll be doing for the rest of class, actually, a bunch of what I'll be doing for the rest of class is some programming, and what we'll be doing is implementing this simple project 0. So, let me walk through this. This is a project that, like in the first couple times I taught this course, this was the first project, but then we quickly evolved beyond needing this. So in this project, there's a single class called student, and a student has some properties. So what I'm going to show you is, hey, here's how to work with someone else's code. Of course, it's my own code that I'm working with, but whatever. We'll learn about some inheritance and virtual methods and methods, and also how to read program arguments from the command line. And so I'll be walking you all through how we might implement this student class. And then hopefully you'll pick up on some of the things that I'm using. We'll talk about how to apply test-driven development. But it all starts with this. So actually, I'll wait until we can see the source code for real. But in this project, there is a student class that looks something like this. And here's all that stuff with the settings.xml. Instead of having to try to cut and paste this out of a PDF, which can be a disaster sometimes, you can just use what's there in the repository. And maybe I'll just, okay, so I'm just going to go back to the repository now. So Project 0 is, is a Maven project. And so you can create this Maven project. There's a command line. There's this big old command line here. If you've got Maven installed already, these days you don't need to install Maven. You can just use the script that I provided for you. So here in the directory is a create project 0.sh, and actually, does it have executable permissions? It does. Oh, right, because it's in GitHub, and I can do that in GitHub. So when I run this script, let's see here. It expects you to have your student ID, so mine's Whitlock. It does a couple of things. The shell script goes and makes sure that you have Java, and that's the right version. And I guess that's it. Yeah, Java has the right version. So it does a little bit of checking for you. If you're running Windows, there's been some talk on Slack. We haven't figured out how to get the shell script to run well under like Cygwin or under Git Bash. I provided a CMD file if you want to use command. My Windows scripting is like way out of date and really rusty and stuff. If anybody is like a PowerShell wizard or anything and wants to contribute something, please do for the benefit of yourself and everybody else. Otherwise, if people on Windows are sort of struggling to figure all this out, let me know and I'll try to figure out what we can do for you. So what this does is it uses the Maven wrapper to go and generate a student directory, which has all of the stuff that you need for your project. And so the first thing I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is, now that I've generated this, I need to make sure. So we're going to use the Maven wrapper, or the MVNW, Maven wrapper script, to run Maven and run our project. So we need to make it executable. And now we'll just run it. Maven W verify. And so when you run verify, this runs your project through its entire life cycle. So there's some source code there. We'll take a look at the source code in a little bit. But it compiles the source code, it runs tests against it, and you can see all of this going by. And there's nothing more exciting than watching a terminal fly by. Which, by the way, can you read that okay? For those of you who are actually close enough to the screen to see it, let me make it a little bigger. Yeah. Hopefully that's good enough. So it goes through and it builds builds the source code, runs tests against it, and makes sure that everything's working. This build was successful. So what I'm going to do now is I want to then, so I use the script to generate code. I want to put this code in the repository so that I can share it with others. So I have like a copy of it in a known good state. So I'm going to do that by first running clean to delete all of the all the generated artifacts. You don't want to commit generated artifacts like class files or jar files, or if you're like familiar with C and C++, your .o, your object files, or your DLLs, or anything like that. You don't want to put those in version control because those are built from other artifacts, built from source code. You just want to commit the source code. By running clean, it'll blow away all of the generated artifacts. And so now all that's left in the directory is the stuff that I care about. This is the stuff that I want to put under source control. So I will add the student directory to Git. That's good to know. And now, if I look at all the changes, here they all are. And now I'll commit these. This will say, I'll say added a student. Well, added the student project. Well, the code for project 0, all here in the student directory. So I add all of that, told me some nice things about line feeds and everything. And now I'll push that back up to GitHub. Just thinking about it, resolving all those deltas, whatever that means. And now if I go back here, add the code, and I've got a student directory. So now I can see all my source code and stuff. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. So now I've got my code in GitHub, and now I'm feeling good about this because I like having my code under source control, because if I mess something up, I can go back in time in the source control back to a time where my code actually worked. And I've done that a lot in my career. So it's very helpful. And also, just as I'm going, and you'll see this when we get into the TDD, you sort of reach certain points where it's like, great, all my tests are green, I've added a little bit of functionality, you go and commit it off, and like, great, now I can focus on the next thing, and I know that I've got a known good state in my GitHub repository. Okay, so I think now we're ready to start coding project 0. Other things in here is oh, okay. I've got other stuff in here, and actually, maybe I'll just run through this now. Because this is the first time I've used this repository, I'll probably be making changes to the repository. I might add. Actually, I know I'm going to add some more scripts. I'll probably be making changes to the README. You might want these changes in your repository, so you want to connect what I'm calling the upstream repository down to your repository. And so then what I can do here, and the way I configure all of that, is I use this git remote add upstream command. And by the way, I've got links off to the GitHub documentation where you can learn more about what's going on here. I'm sort of going fast because this isn't a class on Git. This is a class about Java. But boy, it's really good to know all of this stuff. Let's see here. Let's add to the repository here. And I think you can say what git remote -v. Oops. Good. And it's telling me that, okay, the origin. So like when I do the origin is sort of the default remote repository. It's my Portland State Java, but the upstream repository is the getting started repository. Now, if I were to commit a change, I guess I'm not going to go through that exercise, but if I was to commit a change to the getting started repository, if I wanted that in my summer 2019 repository, I would run git pull upstream master, which gets the changes from the upstream repository and merges them into my local repository. But there's nothing to do, but it was all configured to that. Maybe next time, right? Actually, definitely for the fourth project, when we talk about the when we do the client server, we'll do some stuff there. But by then, this will be a distant memory because it'll be like in 4 weeks. Anyway, I want to pause here because I think we're at a good place for pausing. I just did a lot of talking, so I think I just woke a bunch of you up. Sorry about that. I speak loudly. Did that make sense at all? Again, this is kind of new. Okay, so see what I'm doing here. So I'll review. To help you get started I have this Getting Started repository. And I just walked you through what you can do to sort of get your own copy of it so that you can use Git and GitHub to manage your source code. And so that and so then we saw that you can use the script to create the classes that you'll need for the classes for the Project Zero. Actually, you don't need to do Project Zero. That's not actually an assignment. There's a very similar script for Project One, and we can work through that too sometime. And then we saw how you can take that code that was generated locally, run it, and we'll be running it a lot more after the break, put it into Git, and then put it up on GitHub. And we also saw how you can configure your local repository to have this upstream repository so you can get changes from me as I make them. Okay, make sense so far? Good deal. Okay, let's take a break. We're at a good stopping point. Let's see here. Is that clock right? Yeah, 6:26. Let's take 9 minutes. Sorry. Let's come back at 6:35. Take a little break. Please bring up the little papers to me, and that way I will know that you attended. Thank you. Yep. Oh wow.
Yeah. Good. I'm making an issue.
Okay, do it. Yes. Oh, actually, that's awesome. Thank you. So yeah, don't hand me the ball here on the team.
Submitting my application for the restaurant. And I got the offer, but like, I still need to submit something. And the support is my comment, so I'm not using and I talked about this with Rebecca, and she said if you say yes, she will send it to me.
Well, it depends on where you're on the team. So, we're registered, and then people who are registered don't show up here just based on the high wait lists. Sometimes you get on the thing.
Around to like the thing, and it didn't work. I think I told you 2 hours ago, and it seems like
yeah, I'm a little curious. I mean, if you send with that script that makes it run,
okay, I will check.
that's excellent.
I guess it worked.
Send me an email. I will see you on the so let me know who you are, so that when I see your name here.
Yeah, hey, so I was having trouble getting this.
And is this?
It's on the Linux.
Yep. And so then do a job dash version.
Yeah, I saw it was like 1.8.
Okay. Yep. And so I think we need next 11. It should be there in the package.
Oh, is it really?
Yep.
And that's
Push it back up to my thing. But it should be in here. Awesome. Oh, it doesn't click. That's excellent.
Okay, I don't know if it's configured on the path yet, but right, okay?
Yeah, that makes it perfect.
Yes.
Do I have to
Yeah.
You're on the way to so then, certain spot is the graduate. 30 spots. I don't know if I really see you.
I mean, it was, I think it works.
So I'm not going to send you these notes. So we go,
We said we could, in that case, I don't know about this one.
Like for some reason,
But we also like one of our projects here.
I'm okay with the project. The university must let me. You know, right?
Why do you
I first try to set up my habits,
Everything.
and then fast.
Either if I'm able to either roll the course or if I'm not, I good courses Hey. I'm gonna get my I'm really good at typing these.
We were thinking Thursday.
But yeah.
It should be okay now. So I don't know what's going on there. Go over it. Yeah.
So me and the
It's just copy it and doesn't make any calls.
It's a genius bar up here. I just had
Next time. There's actually one over the head, or you can maybe go to next week. There's a submit projects PDF.
Eli was pretty adamant.
Sorry, you can use yes. You don't use get to submit. Use get to copy between your own sheets. You send your code to GitHub and then you do get them down and check out. Yeah. Remind me next week to show you how to say comments. Yes. Next week.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I didn't stop recording today.